Great. You're welcome once again to my channel. We are looking at ISO 27001 controls, part 4. We've looked at part 1 to 3 in earlier videos. And in this part 4, we want to look at some other controls as recommended by ISO 27001 Annex A. Okay, so today we'll be looking at communication security A.13, A.13. So A13.1, network security management. The objective is to ensure the protection of information in networks and is supporting information processing facilities. All right, cyber security has become very important in these days that businesses are getting automated and getting connected, and people are working from home, and you have organizations going global, okay, e-commerce. So we need to pay attention to the security of our network. All right. 813.1.1 network controls. Networks shall be managed and controlled to protect information in systems and applications. A lot of things can go wrong with the network infrastructure, the cabling, right? You can have a break in cables. If you are using wireless, you might not be using the right encryption technology. And we have all manner of attacks like denial of service, okay, like masquerading, packet replay, and so many other attacks that are, synonymous with wired and wireless networks. So we need to put in place network controls to ensure that the network operations are secure and reliable. So we have 8.13.1.2 security of network services, security mechanism, service levels, and management requirements of all network services shall be identified and included in network services agreement, whether these services are provided in-house or themselves. So talking of service level agreements, so that is an agreement between IT and the users or between a client and the service provider. So the service level agreement must be detailed with metrics, all right, that also factor in security of network services. So the use of firewalls, the use of IDS, uh, the use of packet filtering routers, demilitarized zones, and so on. So we need to ensure that we deploy security also into service level requirements. Okay, 8.13.1.3 segregation in networks. So groups of information services, users, and information systems are segregated on networks. So you shouldn't have access to the entire networks, right, in the organization. So least privilege. I should have access to the only part of the network that I need to do my job, okay, not more, not less. So that should be segregation, okay, within the networks. Then 8.13.2.1 information transfer policies and procedures. So there should be formal transfer policies, procedures, and controls, all right, to protect the transfer of information through the use of all types of communication facilities. For example, use of USBs, okay, sending information, proprietary information via emails. Okay, so we need to look at all the communication channels in the organization and ensure that there is a policy that restricts what you can transfer and even implements, enforce what people can transfer while in the office. Okay, 8.13.2.2 agreements on information transfer. Agreement shall address the secure transfer of business information between the organization and external parties like regulators, like vendors, like customers. So we need to agree on the means of securely transferring information among our external stakeholders. So 8.13.2.3 electronic messaging. Information involved in electronic messaging shall be appropriately protected. For example, use of digital signatures in email. Okay, you want to ensure authentication, you want to ensure non-repetition, you want to ensure the integrity of the message. Okay, so you use digital signature. So messages across the networks in electronic form must be protected. Use of the IPsec to protect IP packets and the rest. So we have 8.13.2.4 confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements. Requirements for confidentiality or non-disclosure agreements reflecting the organization's needs for the protection of information shall be identified, regularly reviewed, and documented. So everybody on the network will sign a non-disclosure agreement based on certain information that are deemed very sensitive to the organization. So people should know what they can disclose and what they cannot disclose based on the information classification policy. The next one is 8.14, system acquisition, development, and maintenance. Okay, so that is basically how to securely obtain systems in an organization. You know, when you want to get an application in an organization, so that you buy the application or you develop the application based on the project feasibility studies. Okay, so you need to be able to have an understanding of the system development life cycle. All right. In this, so every system acquisition or development starts with project feasibility study, good or no good. Do we have a problem that an application can solve? If yes, do we buy the application or do we develop the application? These are the questions that are answered at the project feasibility study, and which the project sponsor have to develop a business case that will now be presented before management, and management determines whether the business case is making sense or not. So if the system, if that proposal passes the project feasibility study stage, it's moved to requirement gathering. Now, requirement gathering is where you talk to the users. Hey, what is your problem? What are you trying to solve? Okay, what are your challenges with the old system? What are the innovations you want in the new system? So you have your system analyst. They will gather all this information and document it at the requirement phase. The requirement gathered at the requirement phase and moves to the design phase, which is now used by the programmers, right, to design the data flow diagram, the algorithms, and the rest. Basically, how the system is going to sync with one another in the production environment. From the design stage, we move to development, where the actual coding takes place, and the testing, of course, must be detailed at this point. Then from the development, you move to final implementation and testing, okay, which is the go live. So you can do direct cutover, you can do parallel cutover, you can do phase cutover, depending on what is suitable to the organization. From final implementation, we move to phase implementation, where you now determine whether you are getting returns for the implementation. That is if you are developing in-house. If you are buying the system, you move from project feasibility to requirement. From requirement, you move to software selection and acquisition, where you develop a request for proposal. The vendors respond to the request for proposal, and based on the responses and the presentation, you select a software and the vendor. Then from the software selection and acquisition, you move to the configuration phase, where you establish the configuration baseline for the application. And after developing the configuration baseline for the application, you can then now move to final implementation. Okay, so go live again. So from go live, you can move straight to the post implementation, where you determine whether you're getting value for the development or not. So these are basically the 6 stages that are involved in the waterfall model for the system development life cycle. So it is very important for an IT person or an IT auditor or somebody implementing ISO 27001 to have an idea of these 6 stages that are involved in system acquisition. So if you are going to be an IT auditor, you want to audit the software acquisition process or software development process, you need to have an idea of this system development lifecycle, otherwise called waterfall model. Okay, so I just gave that background before we continue so that you have an idea of what the system acquisition, development, and maintenance is all about. So let's look at what ISO 27001 says. 8.14.1 System security requirement of information systems. So to ensure that information security is an integral part of information systems across the entire life cycle, this also includes the requirements for information systems which provide services over public network. So it is very important that we are not just acquiring systems we are querying systems securely. It's not enough to develop systems, you must develop systems securely, and that is the essence of this. So for all the 6 stages, okay, the project feasibility, we need to ensure that there is control, and that control is what? Business case. Okay, from that we move to requirements, all right? We need to ensure there are controls. The controls here is to ensure that control requirements are gathered with other requirements. So it's not just functional requirements, we are also focusing on control requirements. From there, you move to design. There must be people, assurance professionals that will be able to confirm that we can tie the requirements to the design. So you don't want the design guys to start using initiative, all right, to design the application. We already have requirements. We also want to confirm that controls have been built into those requirements, to this design. Then development stage, adequate testing, separation of test environment from the live environment, and the rest. Okay. Then go live. Okay, implementation stage. So you want to confirm also that data conversion was completely done. Data conversion was properly done with integrity. Okay, so all those controls to ensure a smooth uh, uh, a cutover with minimal challenges. Of course, there will be challenges. Then, of course, post implementation, we want to ensure that there is an objective review of the entire implementation process. So, 8.14.1.1 Information Security Requirements Analysis and Specification. The information security related requirements shall be included in the requirements for new information system or enhancement of existing information system. I talked about that when I was talking about the design stage. So it's not, the requirement guiding phase. So it's not enough to just gather the requirements of users based on functionality or features. You also need to ensure that control requirements are gathered at this particular phase. Okay, 8.14.1.2 securing application services on public network. So when your information is going to go through a public network, which sometimes may be unavoidable. Okay, so you need to protect the information from fraudulent activities, contract dispute, unauthorized disclosure, and modification. So, for example, use of encryption is not negotiable to meet the requirements of 8.14.1.2 or the use of VPN, virtual private network. Okay, 8.14.1.3 protecting application services transactions. Information involved in application service transactions shall be protected to prevent incomplete transmission. How do you confirm that all the messages you sent have been received? Okay. Functional acknowledgement to help with that. Misrouting. How do you confirm that the information you sent actually gets to the receiver and not to uh, another recipient? Unauthorized message operation. You don't want a situation whereby man in the middle attack, somebody can actually get your packets and change them before it gets to the receiver. Unauthorized disclosure, unauthorized message duplication or replay. So you need to have controls within your system development structure and your communication infrastructure to prevent all these attacks. 14.2.1 secure development policy. So there should be rules for the development of software system, all right, in the organization. For example, secure coding. So you need to ensure that all your programmers are taking specialized courses in secure coding. So they are not just programmers, they are programmers with security consciousness. Okay. 14.2.2 system changes control procedures. It is very, very important, like I said earlier in the other videos, changes will come into the system development environment, but those changes must be approved. Those changes must be tested before they are implemented in live environment. Then those changes must be documented. Okay, 8.14.2.3 technical review of applications after operating platform changes. Now, there's what they call the regression testing. So regression testing is you want to confirm that a change or a solution has not created another problem in the infrastructure, in the IT infrastructure. So you confirm when you perform a change on your perhaps your Windows software or your Unix software, right? You need to first again confirm that those changes on the operating systems have not adversely affected the core business application. Okay, so then 14.2.4 restriction on changes to software packages. Of course, you don't want to encourage modifications to software packages, configuration baselines. So you need to restrict access uh, to source codes. You need to restrict access to configuration repository so that it is only authorized changes that can be effected. Okay, then 14.2.5 is talking about secure system engineering principles. So principles for engineering secure systems shall be established, documented, maintained, and applied to any information system implementation effort. So from stage one, which is project feasibility, to post-implementation, you need to build, controls, engineering controls, uh, physical controls, uh, application controls to ensure that only reliable and secure systems are produced. Then 14.2.6 is a secure development environment. So organizations shall establish an appropriate protect secure development environment for system development and integration efforts that cover the entire system development lifecycle. I've explained briefly what we mean by system development lifecycle. So you need to ensure protection. For example, the laptops that are being used by the programmers, how secure is it physically? Okay, is it a laptop that anybody can just have access to and carry away? Okay, and if you are using platform as a service, I've seen a situation whereby I have a senior programmer that was using platform as a service, and unfortunately, the platform, they had a disaster, and because of that, he lost all his codes, and you have to start all over again. So all these must be put into consideration. 14.2.7 access development. What happens if the developers are not your employees? Okay, so it means you lose control. So you need to also have maybe in your contract, in your service level agreement, and the rest, built into those contract requirements and ensure that you can supervise and monitor the activities of the vendor. 14.2.8 system security testing, very important. So you don't want a situation whereby after the application has been launched, then you start having a manner of problem. So ensure that you bring in vulnerability assessors, regression testers, while in the test environment to discover any challenges that that could be a problem when the system is moved into the live environment. Okay, so quality assurance testing, user acceptance testing, very, very important. Okay, so 14.2.9 is talking about system acceptance testing, which I just mentioned. So bring the users. So you have a user project team that will be part of the development efforts, which their responsibility will be to confirm that the features needed by the users are there and they are working. So, and of course, they need to sign. The user acceptance testers will sign, quality assurance testers will sign, all right, before the application is launched. In fact, in some organizations, they have what they call accreditation process, whereby a senior official of the organization will have to sign that the system is ready for the live environment before go live is commenced. Okay, 14.3.1 is on protection of test data. So you are going to be testing in the test environment. So the test data must be selected carefully, protected, and also controlled, especially since they may have some privacy concerns. So you need to look at that, whether the test data represents production data. Then you also need to pay attention to the need for sanitization in case the test will be run by third parties. Okay, so we have 8.15 supplier relationship, which you cannot ignore. Okay, if you have done the study of paper quality management, one of these days I'll be doing a video on quality management, including paper quality management developed by the Japanese. Okay, so your suppliers are very, very important. Okay, the quality they supply, the timing of supplying can actually have an impact on the process. So 8.15.1 Information Security Policy for Supplier Relationship. The objective is to ensure protection of the organizational asset that is accessible by suppliers. So if the suppliers can log into your network, then you should be concerned. 8.15.1.1, information security policy for supplier relationship. So there should be security requirements, okay, that will cover access of suppliers to your organizational assets. And of course, the supplier team must agree with those requirements and sign. Okay, 8.15.1.2, addressing security within supplier agreements. All relevant information security requirements shall be established and agreed with each supplier that may access, process, store, communicate, or provide IT infrastructure components for the organization's information. That's why in some organizations, they don't allow vendors to just come. You have to pre-register. So they have a pool of vendors that have met their security requirements. So in every relationship with an IT vendor, we need to have security requirements that we must build into those relationships. 8.15.1.3, information and communications technology supply chain. So agreements with suppliers which shall include requirements to address information security risks associated with information and communication technology services and product supply chain. So look at this. I always like when I'm talking about the risk of vendors, suppliers. I used to talk about one site, for example. You have a one site. The website should be ready for activation within 2 to 3 days, right? So, because your recovery time objective is like 38 hours to 72 hours, so you have time. Okay, and the idea is that you have the website with your computers, but your main computers, your main servers will not be there because you believe that within 2 to 3 days, your main servers should arrive. So, what about if on the first day, your servers have not arrived at the website? Fifth day, the servers have not arrived because the supply chain was disrupted by the supplier. So your website has become a closed site. And of course, we start having avoidable idle time losses. So that is the reason it is very, very important that you incorporate your supply chain vendors into your security system. Okay, 15.2.1, monitoring and review of supplier services. So it's very important that you can have an assessor management committee, okay, which will be monitoring and reviewing the service level agreements metrics. And even if possible, you can have some level of audits of the performance and the conformance of the vendor. 15.2.2, managing changes to supplier services. Changes to the provision of services by suppliers, including maintaining and improving existing information security policies, procedures, and controls, shall be managed, taking account of the criticality of business information, systems, and processes involved and the assessment of risk. There will always be changes, like I always said, but before changes are implemented, look at the risk, all right? Get approval for the change. Then, of course, you need to ensure that the changes are documented for reference. Okay, so the last aspect we'll be looking at today is information security incident management, which is very, very important. Incident management is tied to problem management. Incident management is tied to business continuity management. Incident management is tied to disaster recovery management. So which means if an incident is not tackled on time, it's not resolved on time, it can actually generate into a crisis. And from a crisis, it can generate into a disaster from which the organization might not even recover. So in incident management, basically the idea is to detect the incident as soon as possible. Number one. Then number two, you also want to be able to resolve that incident as fast as possible so that business operations can resume as early as possible. Okay, so 8.16.1, management of information security incidents and improvement. Objective is to ensure a consistent and effective approach to the management of information security incidents, including communication and security events and weaknesses. 8.16.1.1, responsibilities and procedures. Management responsibilities and procedures shall be established to ensure a quick, effective, and orderly response to information security incidents. What are we saying? You need to have an incident response team. Then, if possible, depending on the size of the organization, also have an incident management team, IMT. So the incident management team is supervising the incident response team, so that if there are issues, okay, the incident response team can be able to move on time to identify the incident and resolve the challenge. Okay, 8.16.1.2, reporting information security events. Information security events shall be reported through appropriate management channels as quickly as possible. This is why I always say that incident management must also be embedded in the organization, because you might think it's IT that will discover an incident. It might not be. It might be somebody working in a non-IT department that will discover the incident. That's why people should be trained to recognize what an incident is, and people should be trained on the reporting mechanism, the reporting system once they discover an incident. 8.16.1.3, reporting information security weaknesses. Employees and contractors using the organization's information systems and services shall be required to note and report any observed or suspected information security weaknesses in systems or services. That's what I just mentioned about embedding. So you don't wait for IT alone, because I said the primary objective in incident management is to discover the incident as soon as possible. If your systems, if your processes are mature, it means you can actually detect on time before things go out of hand. You detect on time the incident, and you are able to isolate the incident and take it out. So everybody must be involved in the organization in incident reporting. Okay, 8.16.1.4, assessment of a decision on information security events. Information security events shall be assessed, and it shall be decided if they are to be classified as information security events. That's what we call false positive, right? So it's better you have false positive than you have a false negative. So false positive is false alarm. Oh, I thought it was an incident. Fine. People should not castigate you for making that mistake. It's better you make a false alarm on an incident than to see an incident and not recognize it as an incident and allow it to escalate. Okay, so we should be able to have a way to assess reports, incident reports, and classify them whether they're actually incidents or not. 8.16.1.5, response to information security incidents. Information security incidents shall be responded to in accordance with documented procedures. So the incident response team must have documented procedures for each class of incidents that may be encountered. Okay, so you don't want people working from memory. You want them to follow procedures when incidents are discovered. Okay, 8.16.1.6, learning from information security incidents. Of course, in some organizations, they have what they call KEDB, non-error database. So when an incident is resolved, you can assign it a code, then you can be able to give us information on how the incident occurred and how it was resolved. So we can learn and ensure that it does not occur again. And even if it occurs, we can resolve it as fast as possible. Okay, 8.16.1.7 is collection of evidence. So the organization shall define and apply procedures for the identification, collection, acquisition, and preservation of information which can serve as evidence. So in forensics, chain of custody comes to mind. That is, we should be able to track where the evidence is and with whom the evidence is at every point in time, up to the day the evidence is presented in court. So in incident management, it's very, very important that the incident response team is trained on forensics, all right, information gathering, digital analysis, okay, and preservation of the evidence. So thank you once again. My name is Akinwale Akindia. I will be posting more videos in the coming days. So kindly subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching this video.